What automatic aid does is expands the ability to provide fire suppression, emergency medical services, paramedicine, special operations, and hazardous material teams throughout the entire valley. And if you look at the edges of our cities, in a lot of different places, companies won't cross that line. Our system's set up to respond to the emergency wherever it is.
The customer doesn't care who delivers service to them. Is that when they're having an emergency, they want a fire truck. They don't care if it says Glendale on the back of their shirts or if they're in red fire trucks or yellow fire trucks. Is that the value to all of the valley, in essence, is that using this automatic aid system, is that all the members are trained, we train together, we all use the same standard operating procedures, we all use the same communication systems, and we all pretty much interact on emergency incidents exactly the same. It's like one giant fire department.
When you get those large events, you get those 2-alarm fires, you get those microbursts, you get a flooding situation caused by, again, a bad monsoon or something like that, we can literally dispatch half of our units to a second alarm fire, and without automatic aid, we would not be able to respond to half of our city. At those particular times, our neighbors are critical to the safety and well-being of our citizens in Mesa. And we will move up units from Gilbert, we'll move up units from Apache Junction. We will leapfrog, we will move up units from Tempe, and Phoenix will backfill Tempe, again, to keep it seamless. But those are the critical times for Mesa, is when we, for whatever reason, our resources have just tapped out. We rely on our neighbors then to come in, not only just to come on the call, but we'll actually place them in our station. And they will respond from our stations in their apparatus.
In this environment, the first thing that I hear is somebody who's had a bad day is thank you for getting rigs there. And whether it's a rig from Paradise Valley into Phoenix or a Scottsdale unit into Paradise Valley or Tempe, they're not so interested about that. They're interested that they got help when they picked up the phone and dialed 911. For the last 3 years, we've gone to a fully cost-recovered system where we pay our share of the alarm room or dispatch center, and that the other jurisdictions that are using it pay their share. They pay for their own radios, they pay for their own equipment, they pay for their firefighters, they pay for their training, and we pay for the city of Phoenix. We just share those resources. And when you bring up the numbers, it's very even as to how those resources are distributed. But the bang that you're getting for the buck there is you're sharing a center, you're sharing resources through peak activities. Say you're on the south side of South Mountain and something bad happens. We would rely heavily on Chandler's ability to come help us. But if they have a catastrophic event, they would rely on Phoenix being able to back them up. So this system is so fluid and so healthy for people that are having a crisis that it's hard to explain. As far as the fiscal accountability, if you look at where we were 3 years ago, we were collecting about half of what we're collecting now. We're to full cost recovery on our dispatch center. Our ambulance fees for our ambulance transports, which are about $60,000 a year, our collection rate is 82%, which is unheard of even in the private sector. We would hold that up against any vendor out there that's making collections for private ambulances. So at this time, I think there's the fiscal aspect, or it's just somebody who's had a heart attack. And we can answer both of those questions pretty responsibly when it comes to the automatic aid system.
The automatic aid system has been around for over 30 years now. It was originally developed by the cities of Phoenix and Glendale. And in that scenario, it basically saved, just in the early stages, saved each of the cities a fire station, which is a significant amount of money. Phoenix and Glendale were both getting ready to build stations. We each had to build, if we abided by and used the political jurisdictions that were in place, you know, the boundary lines, it would have required us to build 2 stations and Glendale to build 2. And so the fire chiefs back then got together and said, why don't we just build one? And Phoenix, you build one in the south part of this area, and Glendale will build one in the north part of the area. And that was kind of the project that started the whole concept of automatic aid. We saw the value of that. We dropped the border lines between Phoenix and Glendale, and within a few months we started seeing the value of the service delivery piece, is that Phoenix would go into Glendale in those areas where we put the new fire station. Glendale would come into Phoenix, and that's kind of how the system started. Very shortly after that, the city of Tempe was watching and saw what was going on and wanted to participate. And the system has grown over the last 30 years to 23 or 24 communities that are now members of the automatic aid system.
What the automatic aid system has allowed us all to do is can build from the core out, and the fringe areas of every city, not just Chandler, but Phoenix included, even though it's a larger city than the rest of us, we have all been able to place our resources within our borders and away from our borders, so that because we don't have to build to our end and then come into the infill strategy that the rest of the country uses, we're able to ignore the borders and place stations within the appropriate response based on the actual responses that we see, knowing that in my instance, Station 38 in Phoenix actually covers a part of Chandler and is closer than I can ever put a fire station to parts of Chandler. I accept that through the automatic aid system. And there are parts of my Station 284 that are closer to your Chandler Boulevard and I-10 areas than you'll ever plan a station. The reason we benefit from that is we don't have to look at the border and say, okay, we have to build a station out at the border. We can build within our border a little bit and respond to the border mutually, which gives us a better coverage and frankly saves the number of stations that we have to build. In Chandler, we would have at least 2 more stations over our 10 if I was to build the perimeter strategy that most of the country builds to when they don't honor automatic aid systems.
If you're looking at purchases, it's almost the same as bulk buying. It's like going to Costco. You can just buy a lot more you can pay a lot less if you're buying more of a certain product. So if you go to a vendor and say, I need cases of helmets instead of 3 helmets, you're just going to get a much better price. So everybody saves money by holding those costs down and basically wholesaling out the goods or the commodities that we use just in the fire service. Turnout coats, SCBAs, helmets, fire trucks, apparatus, axes. We'll take a look at anything that's out there that we can buy wholesale for the whole entire automatic aid system.
The automatic aid system is an example of government at its best. It saves the taxpayers money, it builds public confidence, it builds public trust, it allows us to deliver the best service possible to the community using the most efficient and effective manner of doing that. I think the public expects this from government and expects that it's going on in other places within the government. Again, we've been doing it for 30 years. It's a tried and true system. We have compared it to other systems in the United States. We have not found anything yet that can compare to the level of service that we're able to deliver at the cost that we're able to deliver that service. It is truly a value for all of the communities that participate in the automatic aid system. I think the public expects that out of government.